Not quite ready to light it up yet, but we're getting there. Putting up our fall decorations, which includes Walmart straw bales, which when I first started buying them were $3.50 a bale, and now they're up to $6 a bale. I usually buy 20 a year because need straw to cover my septic with. And decorations, plus in the spring, Candy's gonna use it to put straw down her garden aisles to stop the weeds. So that's what we're doing for now. I also have a couple more welding projects coming up. Now, I am admittedly kind of a welding hack. I can hold my own, I can stick metal together, and for a hack, I'd say I'm a pretty decent hack. But I was going to show you guys my metal shop. I mean, what better way to stay in touch than to show you the awesomeness of my small 20 by 24 metal shop. So let's start with one of my 20-foot shipping containers. Now this one I call my drops container or scrap metal container. Let me show you. I pick up scrap metal where I can, many times at the steel yard and yard sales, swap meets, things like that. And I got this container because it just, you know, if you don't have a place to store it, it just gets rusty, especially in the North Country's climate. It gets really rusty because you end up storing it outside under tarps in the garage. It gets in the way, but it's better just to have a separate place for it. So I got this shipping container before skyrocketing prices, let's just say. And this is where I store all my scrap metal. And this homemade material container is where I store scrap wood, things like that, you know, spare insulation, things like that. And I just made this out of an old hay wagon that I got cheap and just built kind of like a shed on top of it, I guess. It worked out really well. It works really well. It's on wheels. And, you know, I had to move it like twice already, and that's coming really handy. But what I do is I've been moving everything around my little 20 by 24 metal shop because those of you that weld know the importance of keeping the wind at bay, especially if you're doing non-flux, you know, like non-flux wire feeds and welder. So I put up these wind blocks, which are nothing more than spare dog kennel panels. See that? From an old dog kennel. I go around the other side. And all I did was tack on some of that pole barn siding to him. Because I had a whole bunch of scrap metal from having my roofs on my pole buildings replaced years ago due to hail damage. And I just held on to the scrap metal. I gave a bunch away, but I held on to a bunch. And I've been using it for stuff like this. This makes a really great wind block. Basically, it's just that scrap, you know, metal from having on my old pole barns tacked to the side of these dog kennels and stuck in the ground with, of all things, some free old hand crank ice augers from yard sales. It works out really good, so you can take nothing and turn it into something. So this is what it looks like on the outside of my metal shop. You can see I have all this wind block, and this is my metal shop overflow container, let's just call it. And I made, out of scrap steel here too, a movable wind block. So I can move this whole contraption, let's just call it. I put lights and decorations up on it for the holidays, and I can move it by hand because it's on wheels wherever I need it. Because most of the time I just move it to cover this opening right here, you know, to keep the wind out. And it works really well. Also, here on the outside, I have this makeshift plaza cutting table / table that was just stuck together. This was an old gasoline storage frame, and this was a grate, old sidewalk grate. And I just basically weld them together, and it works good. It works good as a plasma cutting table for my needs. So that was free. And I have just some scrap metal welded together here, just to be able to set things on to weld outside from time to time when I need to. And this is just an old bench vise, very old bench vise, you know, on a sawhorse that I bought at a yard sale for 10 bucks. It's great for outside, you know. I don't have to worry about moving stuff in and out. It works. It holds up to all the elements. It's just perfect. And I got a lot of room out here to work. So if I need to back a small trailer or something in here to weld to keep out of the wind and stuff like that, I can, which is nice. Let me show you my welders. This is my go-to welder. This machine is, I think, me personally, the Cadillac for hobbyists. And I do see them in a lot of welding shops and colleges. Around here, you know, around here, because it's the only place I look. The Millermatic 255, it does MIG, pulsed MIG, and flux core MIG. It's just a fantastic welder. it'll take 75-25 mix, or what I have on it now is 90-10 mix. It just works perfectly as far as the shielding gas is concerned. I think it's a 7-inch interface. It's just really easy to see. The automatic settings are not even, I'd say they get you in the ballpark where I live, you know, considering the extreme temperatures one way or the other. But it's just really easy to use interface. It's just a fantastic welder. And this is what I use for 90% of all the projects that I do. Because it's just, it holds a lot of wire. Let me show you. I have the big spool on it. Can you see that? Yep. And so that big spool of wire will last me a year, minimum of a year. I also have this really nice cart that came with it. Well, I paid extra for it, but yeah, it fits it, let's just say. You know, you can keep a lot of your spare wire, spools, or like I do, you know, things that just belong to your machine. I thought I would need a lot of these because of when I first got this, I thought I'd be burning out a lot of these tips. But as it turns out, I was better than I thought and didn't need that many. But I have plenty of spares, plenty of spares. On these containers, I just have a lifetime lease on them. I don't own them. But a lifetime lease from the local welding shop. Here I have 2 Vulcan welders. From where else but Harbor Freight. I just, everybody around here knows that I love Harbor Freight. You know, I know Chinese tools, blah, 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 blah. I heard it all. But it is an American-owned company. And, I mean, let's face it. Everything in most every store you buy these days is stuff made in China. It's true. But anyway, I have the OmniPro 220. It's a multi-purpose welder. It does it all. It, you know, MIG, TIG, stick, you name it, it does it. I'm only using it for small MIG projects, and I don't generally do, you know, flux core, but I have flux core and wire for it. I keep steady supply of wire, you know, just in case. SHIT, or is it? No, that's SHTF. Yeah, SHTF. I buy it when it's on sale at Harbor Freight. You can get it really, really, really cheap when it's on sale. But anyway, the OmniPro 220, I've used the piss out of this thing, and it's a fantastic welder for my needs. It's just small projects. It's just so smooth. It works really well. I got a 3-year bumper-to-bumper warranty with it. I really like it. And I got the cabinet with it, and it stores a lot of stuff. Yeah, let me show you. You can get a lot of stuff in these Harbor Freight cabinet. All on sale wire. This is for my Pro TIG 165. I really suck at that. I need a lot of practice. That's like winter practice. I haven't practiced with it much. I'm not even that good at sticking steel together with it, but you know, it takes a lot of time and it takes an effort, and I just haven't done it yet. But I have it. I have it if I need it. Got the foot controller and everything else with it. But anyway, getting back to the cabinet. I really like this cabinet for the price. I think it was 300 bucks. And then you got your 20% coupons. And I also have, let me show you. And get it out here. And this is for my OmniPro 220. I got the OmniPro Vulcan aluminum spool gun. For that, I haven't tried it yet. I haven't even plugged it in yet. But I have that capability, and that was important to me to have the capability of sticking just about any kind of metal together if I could. And so, yeah, I think I'm there. So these are my two main go-to welders, is the OmniPro 220 and the Miller-Matic 255, number 1 and number 2. And I'm gonna learn you someday. I will break you. I mean, break you in that I will learn, not break you as in, yeah, okay. Now, tucked away here in my tractor barn, well, I call it my tractor barn because, yeah, that's why. I have a 110 Campbell Hausfield flux core welder. Now this thing works phenomenal. It's just fantastic. I think, you know, it's important to have a 110 flux welder. You know, you can just plug into any outlet and go to town with. And this has suited my needs. Fantastic. I made a little welding table for it out here out of scrap parts. Came out really nice. And I also, on that note, have a Hobart stick welder, Stickmate 160i, which also operates on 110 and 220. And I like to, I'm keeping the 110 stuff together out here. Not only does it save room in my metal shop, but it seems this is where I need it the most on working on smaller projects. I think everybody has heard about or seen one of these babies somewhere. The old Lincoln Buzz Box, the Tombstone. Now I picked this up off of Craigslist for 100 bucks. And I wouldn't sell it for less than 150, 200 bucks, but I'm not going to sell it. It's these things just, they last forever. The non-inverter, they just last forever. I'll pass this on to my son. He'll pass it on to his son, and it works fantastic. You know, this is just the AC version. You know, they make the AC/DC version, but I got that covered too. I got that covered too, but I really like it. You kind of feel complete. Like you have something that is just never going to break down when you have one of these. And this is also phenomenal for SHTF. Everything metal in here, I fabricated myself, including the stools. But you know, how many welders is too many? Nah, you can never have too many welders. There's no such thing as too many welders. Here I have the DC stick welder, Hobart stick welder. I guess DC has less spatter, has a smoother looking weld, things like that. Like I said, I'm no expert, but I've used this quite a bit. And I love the portability of it, being an inverter. You know, you can just carry it around, put it wherever you need it. I have a cart for it, but I don't really need it. I got it stored in the overflow container. But it works phenomenally well. And I've used it enough to be able to say that. And I've been picking, you know, I picked these things up cheap. And I mean, I would not have it if I could just, like, I walked into Fleet Farm one day and not to look for a DC welder specifically, but it was there. It was like $150 off. You know, you got to take advantage of those opportunities if you can afford it. And at that time, I could afford to go ahead and pick it up, so I did. And I don't regret it because I've used it quite a bit. It's a nice addition. And it's a nice match for my 110 Hobart, also great deal stick welder. If you haven't guessed, they were like all on sale. They were discontinuing them or whatever it was at the time, I don't recall. And here next to it, or one shelf up, is my titanium plasma cutter. The Plasma 45 from Harbor Freight. Also an inverter. If you don't have various assorted, all kinds of metal cutting tools, at least have this. But I got pretty much everything. Cutting steel is real important to me because I live out here, and you know, if I have to get steel cut or that kind of thing, it's gonna take a while for me to take it in, wait for it, go back and pick it up, many miles. And you know, if you've been paying attention to the way things are going lately, there is a phenomenal waiting list for those kinds of services, just a phenomenal waiting list. So if you're able to fabricate things from the ground up, you know, yourself in the way of cutting your own steel and then fabricating it after that, you're way ahead of the game. So yeah, I've been planning for this for a long time. Cutting steel. Getting into that, let me show you. Harbor Freight, this is my Central Machinery metal cutting bandsaw, wet saw. This is my go-to, my absolute go-to. I cut everything with this. Well, that'll fit in here. It takes, you know, a little while for it to cut through because it's slow if you do it right. And you don't want your blades to stick or anything, but this is also Harbor Freight, and this was, I gave $1,000 for it. I think they're up to $1,200 now. But I've had flawless experience with this. That's not to say it won't break down someday, but I got my money's worth, I think, thus far. And it's still going strong. I love it. And I have a warranty on it, so I'm not too concerned, let's just say. But a bandsaw like this, I think, is also a must-have. But if you can't, stick with plasma cutter. Also in the steel cutting department, portability. Portability is really important to me. Everything I say is important to me. I got my Harbor Freight bandsaw. which I got on sale for 70 bucks, $69. And for my needs on cutting things that, let's just say, don't have to be that perfect, it works great. It works really good. For cutting steel also, the pricier Milwaukee bandsaw, portable bandsaw. This is like 400 bucks, and this is basically an upgraded version of the Bear. I guess it's Bear tools from Harbor Freight. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but this is, you know, a better saw by far. The battery operated DeWalt. Now all of these tools I'm showing you, you think, you know, how could you use them all? I've used every single one of them with just one project. Don't ask me how. You just seem to need them. You just always seem to need them. That's not saying you can't do it all with one, but the convenience of having multiple ways of fabrication, it's kind of important to me, especially if you're not that good at it, which I'm okay. Now let's get into circular metal cutting saws. You got to cut 1/2 inch steel, and you know, or steel plate, and it's not going to be able to fit on any of your other saws. There are other options other than a plasma cutter. A lot of the, you know, like this for example, I'm not sure would do the job. It definitely wouldn't do a very straight job, that I know. But I picked this up. I don't buy it unless I can get it on sale or fairly on sale. Well, you know, 20, 30 bucks off. I think I got this for like 100 bucks off. This is the Fine Slugger. This baby will cut through 1/2 inch steel, maybe bigger. I don't know. I've cut through 1/2 inch steel with it though, and it just like butter. Just make sure you wear your earphones because it is loud. And it works phenomenally. In fact, it works so good that I thought, well, look how big this is. This thing is big. Let me show you. Out of here. This thing is big, and it is heavy, as it should be. So I thought, well, if this will cut that big 1/2 inch steel plate, smaller metal cutting saws should work for the smaller stuff, right? Yeah, right. So let me show you. So I have some smaller saws. This is the Evolution. It's lighter and cuts just as well. Now I don't think I'd cut 1/2 inch plate with it, but maybe 1/4 inch without no problem at all. And you can see I've used it quite a bit too. So these really, really work extremely well and come in very handy and make nice, clean, straight, smooth cuts, unlike a plasma cutter. And I have the small battery operated one as well, which I also use a lot. And when I don't use that much at all, but I have it because it was on sale, is this also Evolution. And this is basically a multi-saw for wood, aluminum, steel, plastic. And I got it because it was cheap. Really cheap in comparison. But I've used it on some plastic and some wood. And what do they call that steel? The expanded steel. That's what it's called, expanded steel. Works pretty good for that. Also, I think it's important as far as metal cutting is concerned to have an oxyacetylene torch kit, which I don't use that often, but it does come in really handy when you don't have any power and you need to cut something, like out in the field or out in the yard or places like that. This will rip through just about any thickness of steel that I for my needs. Drill presses, gotta have them. You know, you just got to. I have an old Ryobi that I've had over 20 years, and it's still going. It's still going strong. And I use it mostly for steel, cutting steel, and I fabricated a stand for it, along with a movable vise that can hold my steel steady as I'm drilling. And I say "and" a lot, don't I? I'm not a professional. But yeah, you can pick these up really cheap at, you know, even at Harbor Freight. They're not that expensive. But what is expensive, what is very expensive, let me show you. Yeah, the magnetic drill. This is my go-to. I mean, it is, since I've had it. It's my go-to drill press. It's, you know, you can move it around to wherever you need it, and it'll stick to any metal surface, and it just makes life so much easier and more convenient to be able to just pick it up, move it over to the welding table, or to a project where you have to drill some bolt holes or something in. This was $800, and they make them a whole lot more expensive than this. And I've really used this a lot. Like I said, it's my go-to. And I've kind of abused it a lot, dropped it a few times, and it's just a remarkable drill press. And I have some evolution bits and things like that for it. I mostly use just my Cobart steel drill bits from Harbor Freight. But these come in very handy too. And these are kind of pricey. I think most kits are between $100 and $500. Yeah, mine was like $160. But you got to have the right tools if you're gonna drill the right hole, right? I mean, we make do with whatever we have. And if we can make it work, that's just fine. That's just fine with me. But if I can make it work even better, well, I try to do that. It really does make these kind of obsolete. This is what I used to do, is use these in my projects, and it would just take forever. It would just take forever. That DeWalt magneto press, I don't know what the exact name of it is, does it in more than half the time, way more than half the time. Also, for cutting steel, don't count out grinders. That's a cheap way of cutting steel, and it cuts it straight. It cuts it good. This Metabo is a 14.5 amp grinder. I've cut through 1/2-inch steel with it. And it takes a while, but it does the job. It does a really good job. In fact, I think Metabo probably makes the best grinders and things like that out there as far as steel grinders and things like that is concerned. But my go-to has always been DeWalt. So I have a host of DeWalt grinders because I don't like to stop and take the time to switch the discs, you know, whether you got a flap disc, a cutting disc, a grinder, or what have you. It takes time to stop and take them off and replace them. Plus, you know, you don't have to have a real good grinder to do certain things. And you can buy these DeWalt grinders. I think I got 2 for $60, you know, on a Black Friday sale at Home Depot. So you can pick those up pretty cheaply, unlike Metabo. Metabo's like, I think, top of the line, and they're $300+. So just get one of those. Just get one, just like me. Just get one of those. Also on my go-to is I have this Evolution chop saw. And it is definitely an upgrade from what I used to use. Which out here in my overflow container is my DeWalt former metal cutting saw, which is like the abrasive discs, you know, the 14-inch. And those work too, but not like that Evolution with the real metal cutting saw blade on it. It does a way better job, in my opinion, but I'm no professional. Also out here in my overflow container is various grinders and my swag table. I also, you know, keep my less used items out here, like metal sanders and things like that. It just keeps them out of the way, and I can bring them in and out as I need them, because I don't need everything for every project. And so it's just nice to have an overflow container for those things. For ventilation in my shop in the wintertime, what works well for me and are just these dust collector systems. These Harbor Freight dust collector systems. You know, I just fired this portable ventilator up, which I attached a expandable exhaust hose to, and point that out the door. It works, yeah, it works great for my needs, but I'm not welding all day, every day. It does the job for my needs, and it saves me the cost of $1,000+ actual ventilation system for my metal shop. And this is nothing more than like where I store my steel in the other shipping container. This is nothing more than an overflow container for my tools and my metal cutting tools. So here's just a little stand and my go-to grinder. And I just fabricated this out of scrap metal as well. It's just a Ryobi grinder I've had for 20+ years also. And it works really well for all of my needs. And you saw my other backup grinders and things like that out here. I have my handy welder's handbook, which I've used from time to time. And this is my welding table. I have it on casters, so I can move it around. is the very first thing I ever welded in my life. I think most people that take up welding even as a hobby, I think that's the first thing that most people weld. And I'm no different. And so I won't show you any of the welds on this. No. But it works. It works really well. I got my Master Force vise on here. I have my anvil. Of course, this is all made out of scrap metal. Harbor Freight anvil. Works really well. I like to keep a lot of spare metal parts and welding rods. You saw I keep a lot of wire. I also keep a lot of welding rods. I like to have battery operated grinders for the same reason I like an oxyacetylene torch kit in case I need to cut steel or smaller steel, let's just say, than a torch kit. Out in the field, I can just put a cutting disc on the grinder, cut it that way. I also keep, whenever I see a sale, Harbor Freight or anywhere else, I like to pick up these pads, and I like to keep them stored here. And I like to keep everything organized, you know, extra blades for my smaller and bigger bandsaw. I keep as many different kinds of clamps as I can, because once you get into fabrication, you'd be surprised how many clamps you just... I was surprised at how many clamps that I needed. You need a lot just to hold things together, because if you don't hold your work down, it warps. Ask me how I know. It doesn't matter how thick the steel is, it will warp. You got to keep your work clamped. You have to keep it clamped tight. So that is a long video, and that's just the basics, of my small, humble, but very efficient metal shop. Gotta have your magnets. You gotta have your die grinders. Die grinders. Oops. Very important. Gotta be able to reach them small spaces. So I have an area specifically carved out for my die grinders stuff. A multi-purpose gym/metal shop. Thanks for watching, everybody. It's just my way of staying in touch. It's what we do here, is not just travel and awesome adventure camping, but we do a lot of homestead stuff and self-fabrication, and we try to be as self-reliant as possible. And I think that's really important these days, to, even on a basic level, have some kind of understanding of welding, carpentry, things like that, gardening. Just a basic understanding of it can take you a very long ways.